That stupid sister of mine thinks she's a savior. The words slid under the hotel suite door like smoke. Visual. Said the way people talk when they're sure the person they're talking about isn't close enough to hear. I stood in the hallway with a garment steamer in my hands. Heat fogging up my glasses, lace and satin hanging heavy on the rack beside me. Inside the room, my mother laughed. My aunt added something about how I was useful, at least. Then my brother's voice, tight, irritated, said, "Just make sure she transfers the money before the ceremony. We don't need drama today." I checked my phone without moving. Habit. Muscle memory. Damn, why bank app loaded. Balance. $0.00 not low. Not pending. Zeroed. For a second my brain didn't react emotionally at all. That came later. What reacted first was training. Years of being a risk auditor kick in faster than panic ever could. Numbers don't lie, and neither do patterns. Someone had drained the account I used to buffer family emergencies. The account I'd been told, explicitly, was temporary. The one I was assured would be replenished after the wedding. 30 minutes until the ceremony. I didn't say a word. I unplugged the steamer, set it carefully on the floor so it wouldn't scorch the carpet, and walked away from the suite. My heels didn't click. My hands didn't shake. From the outside, I probably looked calm enough to be mistaken for obedient. Inside, my risk auditor brain was already labeling this for what it was. Hostile exposure. Repeated withdrawals. No authorization. High confidence of intent. Liquidation was the only logical response. I went into an empty service stairwell and leaned against the wall, phone back in my hand. I wasn't crying. I wasn't angry yet. I was calculating timelines, access points, legal thresholds. What I could move. What I could freeze. What documentation I'd need later to understand why I didn't scream. You have to understand what it cost me to be standing in that hallway in the first place. The overtime shifts I took instead of vacations. The bonuses I never spent. The quiet way I'd become the family's unofficial ATM while being spoken about like an inconvenience behind closed doors. Have you ever been the ATM for a family that treats you like a servant? Tell me your story in the comments, because I know I'm not the only one. My phone buzzed with a message from my mother. "Where did you go? We need you." I stared at it for a long second, then opened a different app. Not messages. Not banking. The one labeled assets. I wasn't going to the wedding. I was going to liquidate. 6 months ago, I was sitting in a specialist's office staring at an MRI lit up like a crime scene. For 3 years, every step had felt like walking on broken glass. Not metaphorically, literally. Nerve damage, inflammation, degeneration layered on top of each other like bad accounting. Some mornings, I had to brace my hand on the wall just to make it to the bathroom. I was 28 and moving like someone twice my age. The surgeon folded his hands and said the number without drama. 60,000. Not an estimate. Not a range. $60,000. It was the cost of a procedure insurance wouldn't touch but could give me my life back. The chance to walk without wincing. To sleep without pain radiating down my spine. To breathe without my body screaming at me. I had saved for 5 years, no vacations. Not even long weekends. I drove a 10-year-old sedan that rattled like it might disassemble at every red light. Dinner was instant noodles more nights than I'll admit, because every spare dollar went into that account. I said no to weddings, birthdays, dinners out. I told myself pain was temporary and discipline wasn't. When the surgeon said, "We can schedule you for late spring," I almost cried. I remember thinking, I'm finally going to breathe. That night my father called. Kenneth wasn't a dramatic man. He was quiet, reserved, the kind who measured words carefully. So when I picked up and heard him gasping, actually hyperventilating, I sat straight up in bed. "Maya," he said, voice shaking. "I messed up. I really messed up." I had never heard him like that. My chest tightened instantly that he talked fast. Too fast. Failed business deal. The wrong people involved. Loan sharks. Federal charges if he couldn't repay by the end of the week. He kept saying, "I don't know what to do," like a chant. Like if he repeated it enough, I'd fill in the solution. Why auditor brain was already screaming. Why $60,000 exactly? Why a week? Why no paperwork? Why hadn't he called a lawyer? But the other part of my brain, the daughter part, the one trained since childhood to stabilize the family, took over. The part that knew I was the safety net. The reliable one. The one with liquidity, he said. You're the only one I can ask. I stared at the ceiling, pain flaring down my leg, and told myself money could be earned again. A father couldn't be replaced. I wired the money the next morning. 2 days later, I stopped by my parents' house to drop off some documents he said he might need. The place was empty. Quiet. On the kitchen counter sat an envelope I wasn't meant to see. Heavy, cream-colored cardstock. I picked it up without thinking. That's how most truths land. You don't brace for them. You just reached. It was a receipt. A venue deposit confirmation for a diamond package at a private island resort. Bride, Rachel. Event, wedding. Amount paid, $60,000. Timestamp. 1 hour after my wire transfer cleared, I stood there in the silent kitchen holding the paper that proved my pain had paid for my sister's vanity. There were no loan sharks. No prison. No failed deal. They had just been short on the deposit for Rachel's dream wedding, and he knew exactly who to call. I was the only one with cash. That was the moment the daughter died and the auditor took over. I didn't confront him. I didn't call Rachel. I didn't scream or cry or demand explanations. Silence doesn't mean acceptance. It means I'm building a case. And that moment, something settled cold and clean in my chest. I finally understood my role. I wasn't a person with needs or pain or a future to protect. I was an insurance policy. And policies get exercised quietly, until the payout comes due. The weeks after that discovery taught me something important. The theft hadn't been a one-time moral failure. It was a system. Rachel started using the emergency key I'd given my parents like it was an invitation. I'd come home after 10-hour shifts to find my closet disturbed in small, deliberate ways. Blazers missing. The tailored ones I wore to client meetings. Not cheap. Not replaceable on a whim. The final straw was the skin-cared, $300 serum I'd saved for and rationed like medicine was gone from my bathroom shelf. When I texted her, she replied instantly. Relax, Maya. Sisters share. When I asked her to at least tell me before taking things, she laughed in person and said, You just go to work and come home. Who are you trying to impress? That was when it clicked. It wasn't just greed. It was the assumption that my things were naturally hers because I was naturally less important. I wasn't a sister in her eyes. I was a supply closet. A resource to be mined. A quiet provider whose life didn't count as a life. A week later, my parents showed up on a Sunday afternoon like nothing was wrong. Kenneth carried a folder. Eleanor smiled too brightly, and no one asked how my pain was. No one mentioned the surgery I'd quietly cancelled. They spread paperwork across my dining table. Catering contract. $15,000. Just a formality, my father said. We're a family, right? I scanned the document while they talked over me. There it was, buried in polite legal language. Cosigner liability. If they defaulted, I paid. No cap. No timeline protection. I knew they wouldn't pay. They never had. They were trying to trap me into funding the wedding twice. Before I could respond, Eleanor asked for a pen. She started rummaging through my drawers, and that's when I saw it. Another stack of papers left carelessly on the table. The seating chart. I didn't mean to read it. I just did. Head table. Rachel, her fiancé, my parents. Table 1. The groom's wealthy relatives. Table 2. Rachel's influencer friends. I scanned down. Table 19. Back corner. Right next to the swinging doors of the service kitchen and the DJ's speaker stack. Seated with the photographer's assistant and off-duty band members. I wasn't listed as sister of the bride. Just my name. No designation. An overflow section. Hidden away like a dirty secret at a party I had single-handedly funded. That was the moment everything became clear. I wasn't a member of this family. I was their insurance policy. The safety net they walked on to keep their shoes cleaned. I spent my life auditing strangers for fraud. But I had missed the one living in my own house because I was too close to the data. I picked up the pen. And I didn't sign the catering contract. Instead, I smiled and said, I'll handle this, Dad. He relaxed instantly. Thought he'd won. What he didn't understand was this. By handing me the paperwork, he had handed me the weapon. I wasn't going to save them anymore. I was preparing to collect the debt. In my line of work, we call it a Trojan horse protocol. The most dangerous breach doesn't come from a hacker kicking down the firewall. Comes from someone holding the door open for a delivery guy. Trust, familiarity, family. So I decided to be the delivery guy. Phase 1 started the day my father finally cracked. I arrived at my parents' house with a stack of documents nearly 3 inches thick. Kenneth was at the kitchen island, nursing a scotch at 11 in the morning. His phone lay face down beside him. I didn't have to ask. His credit cards had been declined by the luxury caterer. Again that he looked up when I walked in and tried to smile. It didn't stick. "I fixed it, Dad," I said, wearing a smile that felt like plastic. His shoulders sagged with relief. I told him I'd co-sign everything. Venue, catering, final payments, all of it. I just needed to secure my position. Standard procedure. Liability waivers for the venue. Nothing unusual. I brought a notary. Middle-age, boring, legitimate. That mattered. I slid the documents across the counter and started flipping pages with practiced ease. On page 42, sandwiched between catering indemnities and floral delivery clauses, sat the real contract. Deed in lieu of foreclosure attached to a commercial security agreement. The $60,000 wire transfer from 6 months ago had been reclassified as a secured loan. Retroactively, the collateral was the house. The default clause listed a payment deadline that had already passed, which meant the title transferred immediately. Kenneth sighed. "This is a lot of reading." I glanced at my watch. "Unless you want to call the caterer and explain why you can't pay, we should move fast." With a flourish of his expensive fountain pen, he signed. Dave stamped, initialed, logged. Kenneth leaned back satisfied, thinking he had just swindled his daughter into paying his bills. He didn't know he had just signed his eviction notice. Phase 2 was simpler. Rachel's greed wasn't strategic. It was reflexive. You don't have to force a rat to eat cheese. You just have to leave it out and make sure it smells expensive. I placed a $200 imported limited edition hair mask on the bathroom counter, the only luxury item I owned that she hadn't stolen yet. I didn't even have to wait. She stormed in an hour later, panicked. "My hair is a disaster." She rummaged through my cabinets like I wasn't standing there. I leaned against the doorframe and watched. I knew exactly what she was looking for. I'd emptied the expensive product earlier that morning. Replaced it with a cheap leave-in conditioner mixed with a UV-reactive compound. Colorless, odorless, not washable. It dried completely invisible. Under black light, it would glow like radioactive waste. "Don't touch that," I said lightly. "I'm saving it." She rolled her eyes. "I'm the bride. I need this." She didn't check the texture. Didn't read the label. She never did. I smiled and said, "Make sure the stylist applies it thoroughly. It needs to coat every strand to really shine." He smirked. "Thanks for finally being useful." I locked the door behind her, picked up the notarized deed, and slid it into my briefcase. The trap was set. Now we just had to wait for the lights to go out. The island looked like a postcard designed to lie to you. Aggressive sunshine, bright in that expensive way rich people pay extra for. White stone and glass rising out of water so blue it looked dyed. A 40-minute ferry ride cut the mainland away, and with it cell service. Wi-Fi came and went like a favor. Once you were on the island, you were trapped in paradise. Perfect. I arrived early in a navy gown I'd found on a clearance rack. Rachel had called it depressing during the rehearsal. Called it appropriate. I didn't come to celebrate. I went straight to the administration office. Mr. Sterling, the resort manager, greeted me with a practiced smile that tightened when I showed him my ID and the contract. He confirmed the wire transfer. $25,000 rush fee. Paid directly by me, not Kenneth. The account holder name was mine. That we reviewed the default clause together. Immediate liquidation of services if the balance wasn't settled by reception start time. The bar tab was still unpaid. "I'd keep your team on standby," I said. He nodded once. "Just in case." In the garden, Rachel posed for photos like she was auditioning for a magazine cover. Radiant. The dress cost more than my first car. Her hair was sleek, glossy, flawless. The stylist had followed her demands, slathered on the high-end cream and sealed it with heat. Chio the naked eye, perfection, me, a walking target. She glanced at my dress and smirked. Try not to stand too close during photos. You look like a bruise. You look glowing, I said. I know. She flipped her hair, invisible chemicals catching the sunlight. See, I told you I needed the good stuff. You were just going to waste it on your split ends. Behind the floral arch, my father cornered me, sweating. His credit card had been flagged for fraud. The open bar hold hadn't cleared. Can you cover it? He whispered. I already handled everything, I said. He sagged with relief and walked away. I hadn't paid a cent, I'd only started the clock. I slipped into the AV booth as the reception gathered. Showed my ID. Showed the ownership contract. Told the technician I needed to test the bride's requested neon rave lighting cue. He flipped the switch. The booth flooded with purple UV light. Perfect. When Rachel took the mic, she talked about sacrifice, about kindness, about family support. She stood there in a $40,000 dress funded by my pain and my credit and smiled like virtue was hereditary. She signaled the DJ. The ballroom went black. Then the bass slammed, and the UV lights exploded on white shirts glowed violet. Teeth flashed purple. Drinks shimmered electric blue. And in the center of the floor, Rachel's head blazed neon green and orange. The stolen chemical in her hair reacted instantly. Color streaked down her neck, bleeding into the gown. Gasps turned into laughter. Sharp, uncontrollable. Her sorority friends stared in horror. It's like dorm anti-theft dye, someone whispered. Rachel spun, confused, until she caught her reflection in a mirrored column. She screamed, she clawed at her hair, smearing glowing stains across her face. The more she touched it, the brighter it burned. Phones rose everywhere. Influencers filmed. The party had become content. My father stormed in, demanding answers, threatening lawsuits. Sterling stepped forward calmly. Sir, you're not the client. He turned to me. I nodded once. Shut it down. The music cut. The bar closed. Servers lifted trays and walked out. The band packed up mid-song. Rentals disappeared like a magic trick gone wrong. Rachel shrieked that it was her wedding. It was, I said quietly. Until you defaulted. Later, in a side room thick with panic, my father yelled, Get out of my house. I placed the notarized deed on the table. The $60,000 loan matured yesterday, I said. Title transferred this morning. You have 24 hours to vacate. Silence fell hard. I didn't wait for understanding. I walked out while they melted down. Heels steady on white stone, leaving paradise behind clean. Professional to complete. My grandmother was waiting outside the resort gates in a town car. Hands folded in her lap like she'd been expecting me all along. She didn't ask what happened. She just looked at my face and said, Did it work? Liquidation complete. I replied. She nodded once. No shock. No judgment. Just quiet approval. Good, she said. Now you know who your family actually is. Then she suggested a lawyer I'd never met and a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. Support doesn't always come from the people who raised you. Sometimes it comes from the ones who watched and remembered. Rachel tried to control the narrative. She posted crying videos. Claimed sabotage. Played victim. But the resort security footage was released, clear as day, showing her stealing the product from my bathroom. The internet did the rest. Hashtag glowing thief bride trended for days. Sponsors vanished overnight. Contracts evaporated. The influencer career she'd built on appearances collapsed under evidence. The same platform she relied on ended her. 2 days later. My parents were evicted, that's it. No speeches. No redemption arc. Legal consequences. Execute quietly. I sold the house to a developer. Paid for my surgery. Woke up 6 weeks later without pain for the first time in 3 years. I walked without flinching. I slept through the night. Then I launched my own auditing firm. I specialize in asset recovery for victims of financial abuse, family fraud, silent exploitation, the kind that hides behind love and obligation. Turns out I'm very good at it. My family thought I was their safety net. They forgot that sometimes the asset gets liquidated. Subscribe if you believe in reading the fine print.